Hello, story lovers, and welcome to another episode of Around the World in 40 Tales. My name is Doreen Vanderstoop, and I am here today with my fellow Storytelling Alberta member, Linda Dawn Lee, who we fondly call LD. Welcome, LD.
Good morning.
We are here today because LD is gifting a story for our 40th anniversary, and it's called The Man From Galicia. And it is a story that takes us from Ukraine to Alberta. Now, before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about LD. Linda Dawn grew up in a family of storytellers, so she comes by her craft honestly. She has been an active member of Storytelling Alberta and Storytellers of Canada, Conteurs du Canada, for many years. LD especially enjoys sharing stories from the heart, tales of ordinary folks going about their daily lives in extraordinary ways. Folks young and old have been entertained by her renditions of old stories and legends with updated twists. Her forte is stories of railroaders, especially those in Western Canada. Now, before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that Storytelling Alberta operates on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. We also walk in the footsteps of the people of the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. We make this declaration with a firm sense of respect and reconciliation. LD, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. I'd like people to know that I wrote this story to honor the Ukrainian settlers of over 100 years ago, as well as those Ukrainians who are escaping the terrible atrocities that are happening in the Ukraine right now. And they are arriving daily into Edmonton. And so I begin. March 24th, 1877, Peter was born into Lova, Ukraine, otherwise known as Galicia. Peter's father, Ivan, was a farmer in the Ukraine. By their standards, he was considered to be a rich man. Not a small accomplishment when you consider he was living in a place ruled by autocrats with oppressive political and religious rules, heavy taxes, and compulsory military duty. Now, Ivan Sverich was a farmer, so he didn't really feel that higher education was needed. But his son, Peter, craved education. At age 12, he ran away from home so that he could earn his own way through school. In the end, he had a steamer's engineer's ticket. Ivan relented. Peter returned home to work the land and to finish his military service. In 1900, Wilfrid Laurier was the Prime Minister of Canada. His aim was to bring men from Europe, especially the Ukraine, to come to Canada and help to open the West. The opposition was not in favor. They did not want foreigners in Canada. They declared that the Galicians, from Peter's district especially, were lazy, poor, illiterate, had no ambition at all. And besides that, they could not even speak English. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed. And our wonderful Prime Minister declared that Canada would be open to all with no discrimination whatsoever. The Canadian government sent emissaries to Europe, to the Ukraine. They had beautiful, colorful pamphlets extolling life in Canada. And they urged the Galicians especially to leave their life of oppression and come to Canada, where they would be given 65 hectares of free land. The Canadians here were encouraged to write to their relatives and friends in Galicia, urging them to come live with them in paradise. Ivan read the letter over and over and determined he would sell his farm and move his family to Canada, to paradise. And so he did. On the last day, Peter's mother slowly backed out the door of their homestead, kissed the top step to honor the gods of the hearth here in her home and in the ones waiting for her in her new Canadian home. They sailed on the Arcadia from Hamburg to Halifax. There, they boarded a westbound train. At the last stop, Winnipeg, they got down, purchased covered wagon and provisions, made ready for their next leg of their trek to the Star Elna district in Alberta. Well, that part of the journey was worrisome because just the year before, 49 settlers had left heading west. Only 2 children survived. The rest succumbed to typhoid fever. When they reached the Edna district in Alberta, it was a major disappointment. According to Peter Sverich, it was no thriving town. There was a postal outlet, a small store, and 3 or 4 farmsteads. Ivan's friend lived in a wooden shack buried in a mound of earth. It was a hovel. It had dirt floors and sod for a roof. Nothing like the homestead they had in Galicia. They moved on. Finally, they reached a dense forest near Madair. And Peter Sverich's father declared that this would be his free 65 hectares of land. They called it the district of Colomia, so as to keep a part of homeland in their heart. Peter only worked on the farm for a year. As all young men are wont to do, he decided he needed to go to seek his fortune in this new land. He worked mainly odd jobs at a lumber yard in Edmonton, at the Leroy coal mine in BC, and then to the mountains with the CPR. The mountains were beautiful. It happened that the Prince of Wales was visiting Canada. Peter was assigned the task of building a pathway down to the edge of Lake Louise so that the prince could walk in safety down to the waters and dabble his toes. At the end of the gold rush, Peter answered the call of the Klondike. He was a very hard-working young man, and when he returned to Bakerville, he had $3,000 worth of gold nuggets in his pocket. That's about $75,000 in our currency. He was a mover and a shaker, always had been. No was not a word in his vocabulary, and he spoke 7 languages. Over his lifetime, he accomplished amazing things. He built and managed a real estate office. He built his own lumber yard. There was a need for a funeral home. He built it. As municipal secretary treasurer, he helped to establish the Colomia School District. Education was dear to his heart. He was a political organizer for the reigning Liberal Party in Alberta. That is, until they had a falling out. Peter, that Ukrainian bilingual school in Bakerville? Sorry, there's no money in the budget. Peter dipped into his own coffers and he built the Bakerville High School with a bilingual program. He was determined that those Ukrainian students would not lose sight of their heritage nor their mother tongue. In his retiring years, he was still very active. He donated generously to all community programs and Ukrainian organizations. He became a life member of the Vegreville Horticultural Society and of their Chamber of Commerce. Back in 1904, he had met the love of his life, Mary Federicu. They were married for 50 years and raised 6 wonderful children, 4 boys, 2 girls. In his memoirs, Peter Zverich wrote, "We proved the opposition dead wrong. There was no need for them to put us into those internment camps in Ontario just because they were worried we might not be loyal to our new country. Well, we lost 2 sons in World War II, and 1 son lost his arm. We proved we are indeed loyal, proud Canadians." Thank you. And welcome to all our new Ukrainian families. Welcome to your new home. Thank you.
Wonderful, LD. Thank you so much for sharing about Peter Zvarch. That's an amazing character from our history that it's good. It's about time we all knew him. It's wonderful. Yes. For sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for gifting your story for Storytelling Alberta's 40th anniversary. And if anybody would like to get in touch with LD, they can contact us at info@storytellingalberta.com. And be sure to check out all our offerings on our website, storytellingalberta.com, because we have many more stories there for you to watch that are all part of our tribute to our 40th anniversary. So join us there, but also join us next week, Thursday, when we will have another tale to tell.